essentially, she has been working with the African American Diabetes Association from its inception, our co-founder, and a phenomenal woman. Yes, you know her, and I know her as Barbara. Well, I call her the doctor. Barbara King. Yes, she is a doctor in so many ways. She may not have a medical degree of doctor, but she knows everything about diabetes from the rooter to the tutor. So we're talking with Barbara as well. Yeah. Hi, Barbara King.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And I'm happy to be here again. It's so important. And these topics, we got so much information that we need to get out. So I think we need to just get started because we want to make sure that we give all the information and the data, the good news, the work that we've been doing. So it's exciting. And so I'm happy for those that are joining us and for those that hear us on recording. I hope you enjoy this.
That's right. And a lot of people do listen to us after, because some people just don't
Absolutely
want to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're working from home. They kind of sort of lay back and wait until 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
And do late night work as well. So sometimes folks just don't get up. So we're still here at 8 o'clock in the morning, every month. And actually, we want to send a good amount of praise to one, God, but also praise to Pastor Bruce Wall for his effort to educate people about diabetes in the African American community of Boston and just generally the community of Boston about diabetes. So we appreciate you, Pastor Bruce Wall, and Boston Praise Radio and TV and Boston Black News as well. He does a phenomenal job. And actually, hey, by the way, Pastor Wall just started calling me Rock. What? What's up with that? I love it that way because a lot of folks call me Rock, but he's for the first time called me Rock, and I appreciate that as well. So
yes, absolutely.
That's a new opportunity for me to be called something different by Pastor Bruce Wall. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's get to it. We've been doing some good work, Barbara, in the African community addressing diabetes. And we got this grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they are assisting us in our effort to educate people that are diabetic in 3 or 4 communities in Boston. Actually, let me name them: Academy Homes, Orchard Gardens, and the former Bromley Heath, and it's named another name in Mildred Healy House Apartments. And we added an additional one, and that is Mission Hill, Annunciation Road, Mission Hill. We're getting out information to that community as well. All 4 communities are high incidence of diabetes because of the fact that most of them are in public and assisted housing communities. But as well, we're doing some great stuff in the criminal, I call it injustice system. We're doing some stuff in the criminal justice system as well in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and over there at the facility. Unfortunately, Suffolk County Sheriff's Office is assisting us as well and educating people about diabetes as well. And I'll tell you, it's a challenge. Diabetes is a challenge. I have no doubt.
Very much.
We also were doing some work, and then I'm going to start talking and let you talk. But we have been doing some work over there at, actually, we had an event for Black men, and we did some work over at Oasis Barbershop just last week, and you were there.
I
in
was
a barber
there.
shop.
I
Talk to
was
us about
there.
what happened and who was involved.
Um, of course, I don't know names, but it was Oasis Barber Shop down there in the Dudley in Roxbury area. It was exciting. Um, you know, I'm glad that there was people also watching from abroad. You know, it was on the Zoom.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, it was nice just sitting in there with the men and just hearing and them talking to us about their diabetes and the work that they are doing. You know, sometimes we hear a lot that African American men, and that's who I'm going to talk about. African American men don't take care of their health when it comes to diabetes, and just to hear the gentleman just come and just talk to us about his diabetes and telling us, you know, after he heard a wonderful talk by Dr. Andreas, and it was wonderful. And he said, you know, look how much weight. He started showing me pictures, and you know, he said, I lost my brother, I lost my mother, I lost my father. And he said, and I lost my two sisters, and it's just me and my brother right here.
Mm.
And it was just amazing, and the weight, the changes that he made in his life. So that was really, that part of it was just so touching to me, because it just showed he wants to live.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen the effect of diabetes on his family. And for him to share that, it was a story that it was touching. And for a person that's a diabetic,
Mm-hmm.
and I had my own incident there of a severe low blood sugar while I was in the barber shop.
Right.
And so that was an awful feeling. And I got so much support from the workers in the barber shop, the owner, his son, and the gentleman that came up and talked to me. They was all just like, okay, we know what you need to do. We need to give you sugar. They was giving me Pepsi. They was, I mean, but
That's
I
right.
just, you know, sometimes I just say, God do things for a reason. Because if they don't know what diabetes can do to you,
Mm-hmm.
they seen it for
That's right.
themselves. The
Yes.
effect of a low blood sugar. And I mean, I was just, and I thank God my daughter was there.
That's right.
But there was also diabetics there that knew exactly what to
What to
do.
do?
They
Yes.
knew exactly what to do.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, it just made me really just want to
Mm.
fight, because there's so many that ignore, so many brothers that ignore their health.
That's right.
They know they got diabetes and it's
Mm-hmm.
ignored. And so they, you know, just having that in that barbershop is so important. And my next goal, I want it, and I want things larger. I want to see more of the brothers coming out, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and caring about their health more. Because if they got kids, you live for your kids, you know. So this, I don't know, it just really, it was touching. It
Mm-hmm.
was a good event. It was an important event. And we got to keep doing the work. We
That's
got to
right.
keep doing the work, Rob.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And actually, Dr. Stan Andrus,
Yes,
he's a phenomenal educator, a phenomenal endocrinologist, scientist.
yes,
And I'm not sure if a lot of people know what an endocrinologist is, but let me explain. That is a person that researches or does work on blood disorders, blood challenges, an endocrinologist. We need to know that language. An
yes,
endocrinologist. If you're a diabetic and you don't know your endocrinologist, you need to use one, research the opportunities to have one, and find out who are the best endocrinologists in your area. It's critically important. And this brother, Stan Andrus, who is an endocrinologist, actually is a former incarcerated individual. He has written a book, and actually, by the way, Barbara, I'm so excited that he was able to give
Oh,
you.
you can't see it because of my thing, but this is his book. Oh man, it
Yes,
is wonderful.
yes, it's a
Oh,
marvelous book. It is
it,
an amazing book.
amazing.
His book is From Prison Cells to PhD. And that's him right
Yes.
there, because he was in a prison cell and got out of a prison cell and actually became a PhD and an MBA, and now does research on diabetes. And he has an interesting story.
Oh,
You can tell the story better than I. Well, he can, and he was on the program telling his story last week. We're going to post that again on our Facebook platform. And actually, it's on our Facebook platform, but we'll publish it
post it.
again today on our Facebook platform. So you don't have to scroll down looking for it, even though we'd like you to. But we're going to post it again because his conversation with us was amazing.
Amazing.
And tell us about what you have learned through reading his book about his relationship to diabetes.
You know, Rock, I started texting you every time I got to a certain pod because I really didn't get to. I started reading his book, and thank you to you getting. He signed a copy of his book for me,
Right.
and I didn't get to really watch him at the, and to hear his story, but I read some of it, but I didn't get to the part, and I'm glad I didn't. But when I read the part about his dad, having diabetes, and that's what made, he said that his dad had lost his limbs up to his torso.
Oh,
I could not believe it. And he said that this happened while he was incarcerated.
right.
And so he said that made him start going through looking up books, looking up everything on diabetes, because he wanted to find out everything about what his father had, what was going on in his father's body. I tell you, it's amazing. And if you got diabetes, even if you don't have diabetes, I tell you, it's a book to read. One thing, not only because it does cover diabetes so well, but I don't want to hand my grandson my copy because it's signed, but I want my grandson to read it because it also talks about the challenges of just your health care in the prison system. And so not getting the proper health care. One thing that he said that I was truly, it's like, how do we not get this? He said, they only allow us to have 3 books in our cell to take from the library. We can only have 3 books. He said, but we're allowed to have as many Debbie cupcakes as we want. With all the sweets and all the junk food, all of that stuff that everybody gets from the commissary that can afford it. He said it's loaded with nothing but stuff that causes diabetes.
Exactly.
And he said, but we're able to get that, but we can't get books to want to teach us.
Right.
And so it really, really just, I don't know, his story just touched me, and just me having a brother that has life in prison. And so that just made me want to even do the fight more because of my challenges and because of me knowing, I know what my brother's going through medically in prison. It's not with diabetes, but it's other medical issues.
Right.
He has diabetes, but it's other medical issues. So we can only, it was so good. And then when I rewatched his video online on the Facebook, and then I really listened, Rock, that I suggest anyone to please go back and watch that video on Facebook when it gets reposted on the African American diabetes
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, what you explained about Doctor coming on the program and having a conversation with Black men about
Yes.
diabetes, about the importance of taking care of oneself. Raises the concern about what is going on with diabetes, not just in Boston, but around the country,
Mm,
and its impact on Black folks. And as we've been doing our due diligence research with the African American Diabetes Association, you've been leading that effort, and we appreciate what you have been doing
thank you.
to make this whole issue of diabetes in the African American community real. It's real. It is real, but you've been
Yes.
making it even realer, if that's the a terminology I can use. Um, you have been putting it in our face. As chairperson of the African American Diabetes Association Board, you have been doing a phenomenal job at
Thank you.
educating us about diabetes in the African American community. Your leadership is second to none. And I
Thank you.
appreciate and celebrate what you've been doing, leading the effort when you've been having diabetes crisis after diabetes crisis on your own. I mean,
Yes.
when you had that event and you created that event in partnership with Brother Steele over at the barber shop in Roxbury at Oasis Barbershop, and you partnering with all these organizations to pull it off, including the doctor. One thing that I you just talked about was that you had a diabetes crisis
During
when
the
you
event.
were putting on the event.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to your daughter, and she was
Yeah.
telling, "Hey, my mom is in a crisis right now. Your blood sugar level is going beyond below
Yes.
70 into the
Yeah.
60s, which is really at a crisis." And
It,
I say
yeah.
all this to say that you have been leading our effort, even
Thank you.
in your own health crises. And we celebrate you and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
just have to point that out because it's
Thank you.
important to know that what you're experiencing and what I am experiencing with diabetes
Yes.
is what so many people are experiencing. So
Yes.
let's talk for a moment about some breaking news. And
Oh,
the breaking
yes.
news is about racial disparities in diabetes prevalence. I just read an article out of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and the World Bank and Northwell Health looked at racial disparities and prevalence of morbidity, and that's death, due to diabetes in the United States. The information is shocking.
Shocking.
I mean, it is shocking. I got to read just a couple of passages from this article. And the article, I'm going to share it online on African American Diabetes.org, which is our website, as well as our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram pages. We're going to plaster social media about this article because it's critically important. And
Yes.
I want us to just dissect this article for a second, and we're going to just talk about it. But before we talk about it, I'm going to read a couple of passages from this article because I think it's critical. It reads, and this was straight out of the Center for Disease Control, World Bank, and Northwell Health. And what they talk about is diabetes is a disease about which there are countless myths, misconceptions, and even moral judgments. I'm going to say that again. Diabetes is a disease about which there is countless myths. Yes, as in myths, we make up stuff. Misconceptions. We continue, particularly in the African American community, we have many misconceptions and even moral judgments. And we're going to go through this in a second, but let's go back to the whole issue of myths. We have myths in the Black community. And one of the myths is that, old school myth is, and Barbara, I'm sure you can relate to this one, and the misconception is that back in the day, folks used to call diabetes the sugar. Oh, that man, that woman, that uncle, that aunt, that cousin, that brother, that sister, that grandmother, that
sugar.
Grandfather, they got the sugar. And they called it sugar diabetes at the time. And it was, in many ways, a myth, a misconception about diabetes, because we didn't have a lot of information about diabetes, because remember, during that time, we were segregated.
Yeah.
We were essentially indentured servantship, for the lack of a better word. We were just 100 years out of slavery. And then the misconceptions and the myths happened.
Yeah.
And we continue to get our legs, arms, and limbs losing eyesight in the whole 9 yards because we weren't given resources to address diabetes or correct information. And it still happens today.
And we're still in slavery when it comes to diabetes.
Listen, Barbara, you have not said anything that is wrong. You are so right.
We're still in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So let's go on with the article. Widespread cultural beliefs about who develops diabetes, as well as how and why, contribute to the stigma and shame around the illness, while obscuring its real and very troubling social detriments. Powerful words right there. Stigma, change, shame around the issue. In the African American community, even of Boston, and we celebrate the African American community, but Barbara, have you seen in the past 4 or 5 months, as we've been doing this special project in Boston, that there is a challenge in the African American community of Boston regarding at least being willing to talk about diabetes in a main way? Is there a stigma in many ways where Black folks that have diabetes are scared to come publicly and say that this is a health concern of mine? What's your thoughts?
I totally agree. I think that, African Americans are afraid of that word diabetes. And you're afraid of it because of those stigmas that you just named. The stigmas that they give the African American people is not the same stigma that they give Caucasians or people of the white race. And so it's harder for us. So now we don't see as many African Americans that have diabetes. I feel like these events should be loaded up. They should be coming in droves to these events. But the shame and the stigma around it is what stops people from wanting to come out, because they don't want nobody to know. And a lot of people that do come up, they say, I eat healthy, I eat well, so I'm not worried about it. But that's one of the stigmas. You could eat well, you can eat healthy and still have diabetes.
Correct.
Because unfortunately, genetic when you have genetics and other things going on, no
Mhm.
matter how well you eat, you still might need some kind of help. So
We
don't let the word of diabetes fear you when the doctors tell you. Unfortunately, it runs in our ancestors a lot of times. We wasn't treated right back in slavery, you know,
Mhm.
and a lot of times, you know, we went to, I think when we have diabetes events, we try our hard. Well, we do. We make sure that when we do have events, we're gonna bring healthy things because we're not gonna bring any collard greens with ham hocks in it.
Uh-huh.
I would love to,
Right.
because I
Uh-huh.
might be afraid I might dip in the pot. No, but we want to show that yes, healthy eating along with diabetes, it does help you live a longer life.
That's
And
right.
so that's what our goal is for me, for the African American diabetes, is to go out there and to let people know it's okay,
Mhm.
but let us help you to try to make it better. And so because of these stigmas, it put all this fear in people. And growing up, sometimes our
Mhm.
own parents put the fear in us because they didn't understand it. They didn't really understand it. And I know my mom had diabetes.
Right.
We were all overweight in our family.
Mhm.
All of us were, all my sisters, we were all overweight. And so the importance of us learning now. So we know now, and
Mhm.
so we just got to take away all those stigmas that they have and move forward and say no.
That's right.
And we see this a lot in the African American community. People are fearful to come out. They might not want to visit that table because I don't want to even know if I got diabetes.
Unfortunately, that's the fact. And
Yes.
actually, it goes right into this article that we're covering today about diabetes. And one of the pieces of the article, and I'm going to read it, too many diabetics, particularly type 2, um, believe that it is associated with bad decision making. Did you hear me? Too
Yep.
many diabetics, particularly type 2 diabetics, believe that diabetes is associated with bad decision making. It is seen as a consequence of unhealthy dietary or
Wow.
lifestyle changes, and
Wow.
therefore somehow different from the chronic illnesses such as cancer or Crohn's. Others may consider diabetes a product of body fat or even disease specific to biology of a certain racial or ethnic group.
That's
Well,
right.
those stigmas, that data that they believe is pretty much incorrect. Diabetes stigma is pervasive. Two studies published in 2020 in association with the University of Connecticut, right up the road in Massachusetts, but in Connecticut, the Rudd Center for Food Policy and Health found that this is the case not only socially, but within medical settings as well. In one study, 53% of those surveyed adults with type 2 diabetes believed that they could have prevented developing the condition, and nearly 1 in 2 experienced judgment for their dietary choices and felt they need to hide their condition from others. Did you hear what I said?
That's
It's
right.
in keeping, not what I said, what they said. This is the research. It's in keeping with what you just mentioned,
Yes.
that a lot of people believe that their dietary choices were the cause of their diabetes and want to hide their condition from others. So if you want to hide your condition from others, you're not going to come to public events and have conversations with a doctor or a nurse or a practitioner or a subject matter expert on diabetes. You're not going to do it because you have this misguided, not insulting, a misguided belief or stigma or shame around the illness.
And you know, Rock, we at the African American Diabetes have a risk assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people came out and they took the risk assessment. And some, you know, when they've seen the numbers, and I don't believe, because I don't remember the exact questions, but I don't really believe that there was, I think there might have been one on there about exercise or something like that. But it wasn't to say that if you don't eat this, if you eat too much of this, you're gonna, you know, you're at risk for diabetes. It asks the real questions about, are you at risk because of this? Not because of just what you eat, because it's not all about just what you eat. So go online, go and just because you see that number that shows that it's a possibility that you have diabetes, it's a possibility just because of the high number of the risks that it runs in your family. So go online, take that assessment risk. Go on the African American Diabetes website, and you can look it up and you can take that. And then whatever you score on that, you need to go to your doctor. You need to just go and just say, I took an assessment and this is what it came and I'm concerned. And that could be just between you and your doctor, and your risk assessment result, you and your doctor.
Yes.
And so I suggest, if you're afraid, as it said, people are afraid of being judged. You're afraid of being judged. And so go take that and then do something with it.
Well, I'll tell you, Barbara, you've never said a wrong word about diabetes and its challenges. And with what we have been reading about this challenge, and by the way, Center for Disease Control, other entities pulling together this dynamic report on the challenges of diabetes, these medical researchers are finding interesting results. Here's an interesting result as part of this article, and we're talking with, yes, my dear friend and actual leader of the African American Diabetes Association, as chairperson of the board of the African American Diabetes Association, and her name is Barbara King. I call her the doctor. We're here talking with her as co-founder of the organization, and I am CEO and co-founder of the organization as well. And we appreciate you all coming in to this broadcast here on Boston Black News and Boston Praise Radio and TV on the African American Diabetes Association's news update. We're giving you an update on all things Black or African American diabetes. And we're sharing the article and we're talking about the article, and it's making sure that we understand the context of the article and breaking it down. It's an interesting article out of the CDC and other entities that have been doing research on diabetes. And medical researchers have debunked factors like individual choice, body fat, and ethnic biology as the driving forces behind diabetes. Instead, the disease is one of the many health conditions that expose existing racial and class-related health disparities. I'm going to repeat that because it's so critical and so important for our discussion today, Barbara, because you've been following up on these specific concerns. Let's go through that one more time. Medical researchers have debunked factors like individual choice, body fat, and ethnic biology as driving forces behind diabetes. Instead, the disease is one of many health conditions that expose existing racial and class-related disparities. Barbara, that is in itself a lot to talk
A
about.
lot. A lot.
Because here's the deal. Individual choice. We make individual choices, but sometimes those individual choices, as you mentioned, individual choices on what we eat. Well, if we choose differently and eat better, eat well, that doesn't stop diabetes from happening.
Absolutely.
It's what you just mentioned earlier. And
Yeah.
the doctors are saying, and researchers are saying the same thing. Individual choice doesn't necessarily stop diabetes.
That's right.
Body fat doesn't necessarily stop diabetes. Ethnic biology doesn't necessarily stop diabetes, but we have learned, you and I, and the leadership of the African American Diabetes Association, as well as the volunteers, we got dozens of volunteers working with us too, is that existing racial and class-related health disparities is impacting diabetes in the African American community. Barbara, let's talk about that for a moment. What does health disparities mean in reality? What does health disparities mean?
Health disparities is when you are a person. I just have to just be honest. If you're not white and you don't, and you're living in a community, just say we'll use Roxbury. There's so much health disparities in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan. They have health disparities because they don't get the same treatment as a person of a different color. And when I say a different color, I don't mean Hispanics, because they're in the same rate as the African Americans. So they suffer health disparities, along with people of color suffer health disparities where we're not getting the proper health care, the health care that we're getting, the food, the healthy food. To me, that's a health disparity, because we're not getting that. And then there's just so many. My mind can't even. I'm just like, all these we got so many health disparities in the United States that you would not believe it. Even as a diabetic, I still deal with health disparities. We have health disparities when it comes to insulin pumps, different things. We have all types of health disparities because of our color.
That's right.
And you can go into more detail.
So, as an example, so we have, you know how back in the day, and people are still doing it now, they prick their fingers to see what type of level their sugar is at. And we've been pricking for years. Prick, prick, prick. Actually, one of my thumb in particular is numb because of the fact that I had been pricking it for years. And by the way, there is now what is called a CGM monitor. It essentially allows you to do essentially one prick, and it's in your body. And in your body, it's able to track your sugar levels. Well, it's great to have this technology, but if the doctors, the medical scientists, the researchers, and everyone else is saying, hey, guess what? There's a disparity. Black folks aren't getting the CGM monitor. People of color are not, generally speaking, getting the CGM monitors. The healthcare systems are not providing those CGM monitors to poor folks. Why? Because they don't want to pay for it out of insurance. And then there are people that don't have insurance that can't afford a CGM monitor at $5, $6, $7, $1,000 a month for a electronic monitor to track your diabetes. So that's a health disparity.
In rock, a good example is yesterday, I was walking, doing my walk,
Mm-hmm.
and I ran into a Hispanic maintenance man that used to work on this property. He works in another one. And so I ran into him, and we used to always talk because he's a diabetic. So he says to me, he says, I told him he shouldn't be sticking his fingers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went through his doctor. We got him the CGM monitor. Do you know, I haven't seen him in over a year. I
Mm-hmm.
just seen him yesterday, and he said, Barbara, he said, they gave me the monitor. They sent it to me,
Mm-hmm.
but then I can't get the medicine. I guess he has the one that the insulin goes in it. He said, and
Mm-hmm.
it tests my sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the insurance won't pay for it. They want me to pay $77 a month. So I haven't been able to put it on. So it's just sitting in my house. Unbelievable. That's a health disparity.
Yep.
Because why would you not support this person? And right on that day, his sugar was, he said, 277, and he was still working. He said, I felt so miserable, but I didn't want to call in.
That's right. Yeah.
That is a serious health disparity. All I could say to him is, call me and I will make sure we get this taken care of.
Well, Barbara,
Sad.
we've had not just you impacted by this. We've
Yes.
had our own the interim vice chairman of the AADA to
Yeah.
have the same challenge
Challenges. Yes.
during the event that we had.
Exactly.
About the challenge that he has had, where he ordered that equipment and only got one
Yes.
of the two items. So it's a
He can't use it.
he can't use it.
Can't use it.
So these inequalities, as is reported from the Center for Disease Control out of Atlanta, these inequalities continue to also impact the treatment of those who already have been diagnosed with diabetes. And let's not even talk about pre-diabetics. The price of insulin in the United States exploded more than 600% over the past 2 decades. As diabetes has risen, and by the way, here's the data. Here's the data. I'm going to say it again. Here is the data. By 2040, 50%, that's half of the population of the United States will have diabetes. Did you hear me? The Center for Disease Control out of Atlanta is actually saying that 50% of the American population will have diabetes in the next 25, what is that? Another almost just 15 years, right? 2040? Sheesh.
And the US is the one that has the highest rate of diabetes in the world. That is for a country that's supposed to be so rich in every, it's mind-boggling. You have the highest of the rate of diabetes in the world, Rock.
In the world. But here's
the world.
Here's the interesting part, is diabetes is in terms of regional disparities as well. There is regional disparities. And what do we mean by regional disparities? We're talking about the diabetes belt. And essentially, it's what is called the Bible Belt as well. It's everything below the Mason-Dixon line. You remember the Mason-Dixon line? Yeah. Well, you learned about that in high school, the Mason-Dixon line. Essentially, anything below Delaware is considered the Mason-Dixon line. And that's the line where the South and the Deep South begins. So you have places like Maryland and North Carolina, South Carolina, DC, Virginia, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, all those states have the highest incidence of diabetes. Again, the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, according to the Census Bureau and, yes, the CDC. The Southeast region and the Appalachian region, or what is called the diabetes belt, is impacted by diabetes more than any other portion of the United States of America. And by the way, Boston might as well be in that diabetes belt because Boston has a horrific number of diabetics. And actually, in Roxbury, that has the highest incidence of diabetes in Boston. Yeah, data from the City of Boston's health department is pretty challenging for anyone to read about diabetes. What's your thoughts, Barbara, about this whole challenge of diabetes, not just in the diabetes belt, but in Boston?
You know, sometimes I say, you know, because Boston, when I think of a lot of people wanting to, you know, they wanting to come to Boston, it's such a rich state or whatever, and I say, you know, but I don't know, I have to sometimes I rethink things. And when I go into the community, into the African-American communities of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and I just see where, when I walk through there, Rock, and I don't see a Whole Foods. I don't see these other markets. We used to call them bread and circus or whatever. The markets that have the foods and the rich foods that I see when I come out to all these other towns, Newton, Wellesley, all of them, they got all these Whole Foods and bread. Why we don't have not one in a Roxbury, Mattapan, or Dorchester community? Do we not want to eat well either? Do they think that African Americans don't want to eat a good, you know? And then I went into Stop and Shop in the African American community, and when I seen some of the fruit, it was like they didn't care about it.
Yep.
Why would you still have rotten apples in the thing?
Right.
Wouldn't see that in Newton, Wellesley, or any of those places. So why? And so that bothers me, because it makes me feel like that they feel like African Americans or people of color, say Hispanics, all of them, we don't want to eat well. We don't want to eat. Not that diabetes, if you eat well, but why don't we deserve the same treatment to try to live a better life? They don't give us the opportunity, unfortunately. And so I feel like that's what the African American diabetes is here for. Utilize us, you know, go on the website, look it up, because we are doing some wonderful work in these communities. I tell you, the people that I met in these communities is just, and they want it, Rock. They want it. You know, the spring event we did, you know, the last event we did, you know what a woman did? She came up, she talked with us. She said, you know, her son was with her. He must have been about 8. And she said, his father has diabetes.
Wow.
And I said, really? She said, but you know what? I'm not going to put my email on this paper. I'm going to put his. Can y'all send the information to him? But I'll let him know that I signed him up for it.
That's right. Good.
Sometimes we got to be responsible to hold other people responsible.
That's right. No doubt.
And so, you know, and that's what the African American diabetes is doing. That's what the Boston Black News Radio is doing. That's what they're doing. We're trying to put the word out there. We want our people to live.
That's right.
We want you to live. And no, as we stated earlier, it's not all about eating well. It's about going to the doctor,
Mhm.
getting yourself checked out, and making sure that you don't have diabetes. And if you do, or pre-diabetes, and if you do, that just means there's work to be done.
Yeah.
And that's what the African American diabetes is here for.
Mhm. Well, I think, and we should not shame ourselves.
Absolutely.
Should not shame ourselves with diabetes and its impact on us. It's okay. I say it all the time. It's almost like, and this is not to insult alcoholism at all. I'm just wanting to go there for a minute. Is that when you are an alcoholic and you go to an AA meeting, the first thing they ask you to do is recognize that you are an alcoholic.
That's right.
Period. Until you come to the realization that you have a disease, and that is alcoholism. Until you recognize it, you won't be able to fight that battle.
That's
And it's
right.
the same thing with diabetes.
That's right.
It's
That's
a
right.
battle. It's not
That's
something
right.
that you asked for. It's something that came upon you.
That's right.
And you should recognize it and accept it and strategize and make sure that it doesn't impact you in a way that you find yourself losing a limb,
That's right.
losing something that you want, your foot, a toe, a finger, a hand, your eyes, it goes across the board. And if we don't do it, if we don't not only educate ourselves, but actually have a conversation with ourselves and our community and our family about diabetes, then we're not being honest with ourselves. That's what I believe. We need to be
Yes,
honest.
we do. We got to be honest, and we got to admit that that I have diabetes. Believe me, it took me a long time, even without a pancreas. And I
Mhm.
knew I had it, but I
Right.
had to really say, you know what, Barbara, you can do this. You can do this. Every day is a fight. But guess what? You just keep going. And so you get diabetes, you're going to keep going.
Keep
You
going.
know, and fight them doctors, I tell you, because sometimes they're the ones that keep us down.
That
And
we
we,
agree.
they're the
We
ones that.
We agree, and I'm in a region of the country in the Washington, D.C. area that there are plenty of Black doctors. But you go to other places, there's not as many Black doctors, including,
Like Boston.
yes, like Brockton, Boston,
Yes.
Haverhill, Lawrence, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, Roslindale. We just can keep on going on with names of neighborhoods and cities that have a lack of Black doctors. So go to your doctor and demand that they test you on a regular basis with regards to your A1C. We're talking with, and I guess we got 2 minutes left. We're talking with Barbara King, chairperson of the African American Diabetes Association Board and co-founder of the African American Diabetes Association. We're giving an update on diabetes in the African American community of Boston, as well as a conversation about African American diabetes across the U.S. We only got 1 minute to go. Your closing comment, Barbara.
I just appreciate all of you. I appreciate you, Pastor Bruce Wall, the Boston Black News, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because without your support and, in helping us, we wouldn't be able to put the word out there the way that we're doing it.
Yes, so thank you very much. And thank you, Barbara King, for
Thank you, my rock.
the organization that is impacting the African American community in Boston across the U.S. Again, thank you all for joining in to this conversation. at this time next month will be another conversation. We look forward to seeing your face
Absolutely.
in the place.
Thank
This
you.
has been African American Diabetes Association. I'm Leon Rock, and that's
I'm
Bob
Barbara.
King. Have a good day.
All right. Stay blessed.